Welcome to Hoops Archives, where we focus on sharing real and interesting player stories on and off the NBA court. Subscribe to our channel to help you discover a more interesting NBA. Did you notice this detail from Chris Paul during a timeout in the play-in tournament between the Warriors and Kings this season? While other teammates were resting off the court during the timeout, Chris Paul was alone on the court doing shooting warm-ups. The result of the game at that time had lost its suspense, and the 38-year-old knew that this would also be his last game of the season. This lonely back is more like his fight against the injustice of fate. From being a rival of the Warriors to joining the Warriors, the 38-year-old Chris Paul originally came to San Francisco, California to pursue the dream of a lifetime championship. But this season's Warriors no longer have the strength to dominate the NBA back then. For 38-year-old Chris Paul, failure and missing the championship have become the main theme of his career. But this season Chris Paul's vacation came earlier than usual. This is also the first time in 13 years that he has missed the playoffs. Although Chris Paul's annual salary of $30 million at the end of his career does not seem worthwhile to the Warriors, but his role for the Warriors is obvious to all. Although his scoring and assist data dropped to career lows, Chris Paul was willing to serve as a substitute for the first time in his 19-year career for the sake of the team. He also once turned the Warriors bench into the strongest bench in the league. Jonathan Kuminga, who had hit the bottom of his career, became the Warriors' most promising future star under the guidance of Chris Paul. NBA rookie Tracy Jackson-Davis also performed well. Moses Moody, whose performance was mediocre, also became more and more outstanding next to Chris Paul. Even if the game loses suspense, he will still call on his teammates to play well in the final moments. It is precisely because Chris Paul controls the rhythm of the Warriors' game that makes Stephen Curry's game easier this season. He has said more than once that he feels so comfortable playing with Chris Paul. Chris Paul always makes the right decisions on the court. He knows exactly when to use which tactics. Head coach Steve Kerr also bluntly stated after the loss to the Kings that he hopes Chris Paul can return to the team next season. However, even though teammates and coaches are trying their best to retain him, Chris Paul's Warriors career may have ended prematurely. If the Warriors want to keep Chris Paul, it will mean paying an annual salary of up to $30 million, which will also cause their luxury tax to far exceed the standard. For an NBA team that pursues maximizing business interests, his annual salary of $30 million is already in the category of high salary and low performance. However, if Chris Paul can accept the basic salary, he will undoubtedly be the veteran that all NBA teams want. In fact, CP3 has always been helping young people grow. Chris Paul helped Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Devin Booker quickly grow into superstars in 1 year. At the end of his career, he has become a veteran that every NBA team in the rebuilding period is competing for. Chris Paul's experience as a mentor, let's start with SGA. In 2019, the Rockets traded the aging Chris Paul to acquire Russell Westbrook, and the Clippers also gave away the young SGA in order to acquire peak Paul George. In this way, the two of them came to Thunder together. Before the start of the season, no one would have thought that this rebuilding Thunder would actually achieve 5th place in the Western Conference in the regular season. In the first round of the playoffs, they faced the Rockets led by James Harden and Russell Westbrook, and almost completed a comeback in the tiebreaker. The growth of the young SGA was not restricted by Chris Paul. Instead, he made huge progress in just 1 year. This is because Chris Paul will give him private lessons after the game, passing on skills and experience to this young man. Even when there is no competition, SGA will go to Chris Paul's home to ask questions alone. That season his scoring average increased by 9 points per game compared to the previous year. He also bluntly said that the experience of working with Chris Paul allowed him to grow up and finally take on the responsibility of team leader. In Chris Paul's first year in Phoenix, he teamed up with Devin Booker to lead the Suns, which had missed the playoffs in 10 years, to the NBA Finals. When talking about Chris Paul's subtle influence on himself, Devin Booker admitted that he would always observe Chris Paul to see how he improves his skills and learn how he takes care of his body. He said that he would always listen to Chris Paul's opinions, and Chris Paul would patiently correct his mistakes. Even when Chris Paul was injured, Devin Booker learned to take the lead alone and take on the important responsibility of the team leader. On the 5th anniversary of the day when Devin Booker scored 70 points but still lost, he led the team to score 49 points to secure the top spot in the Western Conference in advance. In just 1 year since Chris Paul arrived, Devin Booker has changed as if he was completely transformed. Let's go back to 2004. When he was in high school, Stephen Curry followed his father to watch a game between his father, Del Curry's alma mater, Virginia Tech, and Wake Forest University. Since that time, Stephen Curry has been deeply attracted by Chris Paul's ball handling skills. He begged his father to learn playing from Chris Paul. So Stephen Curry, who was in high school, would stay in North Carolina with Chris Paul to train with him every summer. On the eve of the 2009 draft, Stephen Curry was invited to LeBron James' summer camp. At that time, Chris Paul had already begun to show his star character, and in 2008 he almost stole Kobe Bryant's MVP award. During that period, in order to deepen his relationship with Chris Paul, Stephen Curry took Aisha to Orlando Disney for vacation with Chris Paul and his wife. Later, when the two became completely competitive, they did have a lot of grudges. For example, before the start of Game 6 of the second round of the Western Conference in 2019, Stephen Curry made an appointment to train at the Toyota Center in Houston. But when Chris Paul learned about this arrangement, he and his teammates also chose to practice at the same time. Seeing this scene, Stephen Curry said that he only wanted one half, but this request was not agreed to by Chris Paul. On the night of Game 6, Stephen Curry did not score a point in the first half, but scored 33 points in the second half to eliminate the Rockets. Back in the locker room, Stephen Curry yelled at Draymond Green to kick me out of the game again if he could. Green also echoed Stephen and said he should be kicked out. So many years later, when Chris Paul joined the Warriors, he said that all this was too dreamy. Although the Warriors' record is not ideal, we can see that Chris Paul really teaches this group of young Warriors with heart. Chris Paul is an out-and-out point guard. He is also an old and steadfast mentor who keeps moving forward. If Chris Paul leaves the Golden State Warriors, the San Antonio Spurs will also become his best choice. Previously, relevant news stated that the Spurs management had contacted and communicated with Chris Paul about signing issues and expressed the hope to get him to join him in the 2024 offseason. The Spurs' main purpose is to allow him to become Victor Wembanyama's on-court mentor and help this unicorn-level future superstar achieve rapid growth. Chris Paul himself also expressed his willingness to consider this proposal. As the 4th overall pick in the first round in 2005, Chris Paul, who is about to turn 39, is already the oldest veteran in the league after LeBron James among active players. Judging from his personal competitive status, he does not have the strong physical fitness like LeBron James that has not declined in 20 years, but compared with other veterans, he is still enough to be called enduring. After all, before joining the Golden State Warriors, he was still among the top 3 in the league in assists. Even in the 2023-2024 season when he comes off the bench for the Warriors, he can still average 9.2 points, 6.8 assists and 1.2 steals in 26.4 minutes per game. It can be said that if he had not made sacrifices because of the Warriors lineup, he would have been fully qualified to serve as the team's main starter based on his personal performance. Now that he is invited by the Spurs management, it is actually expected. After all, for the current Spurs, what they lack is a player who can serve as a core organizer. And this player must also have absolutely rich experience on the court to help the Spurs young people grow rapidly. And today's Chris Paul perfectly meets all the requirements. From Chris Paul's personal perspective, the reason why he chose to join the Warriors was simply to work hard for the championship trophy at the end of his career. But despite making so many sacrifices, he still ended up missing the playoffs. He was inevitably frustrated with the Warriors' management. For Chris Paul, rather than continuing to waste time with the Warriors, it is better to choose to join the San Antonio Spurs. First, he can help Spurs players grow. Secondly, he can also learn from Greg Popovich early, and it would be a good choice to continue coaching NBA teams after retiring. Okay, that's all the content of this video. This episode is coming to an end, and everyone is welcome to leave comments. Please like and subscribe and click the bell icon to get new video updates. There's even more great stuff on my channel homepage. Thank you for watching.